You found the skeleton. How would you tell people that it's you personally? How would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hello and welcome to my channel. Vice Rhino here. Oh, wait, wrong intro. Hello, everybody. This is Jackson Wheat, definitely. And I'm on today with our wonderful producer, Peter, as always, and our co-host, the one, the only, Dapper Dinosaur, who is not in the intro. I said it first. You can't.
That's
do
true. I am, in fact, Dapper Dinosaur, the most frequent guest on this channel, and one of the few guests who is still not in the intro.
I said the thing already. You can't do that.
Did I lie?
So as the person having made the intro, the people who are featured in the intro are the people who've been on Jackson's channel as a guest for a conversation. So,
well, I mean, we're having a conversation.
Yeah, I was there with Paleologos for that conversation.
That is,
that's true. The people I mean were that was a special just about that particular guest.
Well, Dapper, tell you what, why don't you come on as my one and only guest, and I will have a chat with you, and then you can be in the intro. How does that sound?
Okay.
I'll interview you. We'll talk about. I'll ask you about your hats, and your ties, and that little aquarium in the background there.
It is a very nice aquarium.
It is a very nice aquarium. I like it a lot. Very clear. All right. So, hello everyone in the outside world, like Ben Hoven and Smitty and Brian Stevens and George Gomez. Hello, welcome everyone.
I'm not sure that's not Jorge Gomez.
Or it could be Jorge Gomez. I apologize. We have finished the Mesozoic. We're in the final era so far of the Phanerozoic eon.
Now, I recommended we just skip over this because it's basically boring since there aren't very many dinosaurs at this point. But apparently,
there are lots of dinosaurs at this point. What are you talking about?
Not comparatively.
I mean, I don't know. How many species of non-avian dinosaurs do we know versus how many species of avian dinosaurs?
No, it's not about how many we actually know. It's about how prevalent they were in the ecosystems. Because you know that any given fossil assemblage, we're only going to capture a fraction of the actual diversity of any given taxon.
Someone just sounds salty right now. That's what it sounds like.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you.
Just sounds like some salt. Anyways.
I'm just saying the Cenozoic's not as good as the Mesozoic.
You heard it here first, folks. Dapper's running in with the spicy takes.
I mean, anyone who knows my take on pelagic tunicates already knows that I can dish out a spicy take from time to time.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so let's get into the Cenozoic. The Cenozoic.
Yay.
So the Cenozoic lasted from the end of the Cretaceous, so that was about 66 million years ago, as Dapper walked us through. And the end was punctuated with a big freaking rock, which hit the Earth, and made really bad days for some different clades of animals and plants and things. But now we're in the Cenozoic, which is divided into epochs rather than periods. So at this point, because the epochs are substantially shorter than the periods are, remember the Cretaceous lasted from like 146 to 66 million years ago. Well, each of the epochs tends to last from like, at most like 15 million years, something like that. Much, much shorter slices of time. And by the time we get to the Quaternary, or the Pleistocene, it's like 2 million years ago to like 11,000 years ago, something like that. It's a very, very small slice of time. So
yeah, the Holocene is absurdly short.
Yes, yeah,
so far,
right? So far, unless you're watching in the year 30,000, in which case, hello, welcome, glad to have you. You should probably find some
pretty short,
some more recent media You know.
Yeah. Also,
on
I'm very impressed that you bothered to learn this ancient language that we're using right now.
right. Right. Yeah. So okay. So the first epoch of the Cenozoic is the Paleocene, and it lasted from 66 to about 56 million years ago. So the non-avian dinosaurs are wiped out, and as of yet, there are no no fossil assemblages in which any non-avian dinosaurs survived into the Cenozoic. Lots and lots of avian dinosaurs survived, but so far it looks like no non-avian dinosaurs. So sorry, Mokele and Mbembe fans out there. So sorry. But in the absence of the dinosaurs, the mammals began radiating into the niches that were left open by them. Now, mammals stayed relatively small in the Paleocene, except for a few groups like the pantodonts who got fairly large, but most groups were still like maybe about the size of a medium-sized dog, basically.
I was actually about to say, you say that the mammals are getting all these megafaunal niches, and you show Carbonemys, Titanoboa, and Purosaurus. So
Hey, we'll get there. We'll get there. I showcased them because these guys are all from the late Paleocene, early Eocene. Because you have this event called the Paleocene Eocene Thermal Maximum. So it seemed like, at least from what I remember of it, increased volcanism in the North Atlantic igneous province caused a raising of Earth's temperature, and this allowed some reptiles to get fairly large, like Titanoboa. Do you remember how long Titanoboa is? Because I don't remember offhand.
I don't remember offhand,
It was
but I do
absurdly
remember
large.
that for no reason they're venomous in the game Ark Survival Evolved.
Yeah, that doesn't really make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
But Titanoboa was ludicrously large for a snake.
Mm-hmm.
It would not
Largest
want
known ever snake.
Yeah, and I think Carbonemys was like the size of a smart car, wasn't it? It was also extremely large.
Yeah. It was probably weighed about as much as a car too.
Yeah.
Turtles are not known to be light.
Well, right, yeah, and there were even some very large turtles in the Pleistocene, like Meolania, which I don't think I have a picture for him, but he was a cool dude. He was in Australia.
Also, not
hanging out.
technically a turtle, wasn't it?
Oh, it may have been like Pan-Testudines rather than Testudines or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't quite remember turtle systematics. Might be.
Well, my memory from having worked on it myself and also seeing, you and I basically were doing turtle stuff around the same time, was that it, as well as Ninjamis, were technically not in crown Testudines because they were actually basically branching to both Pleurodires and Cryptodires, which are the only two extant lineages of true turtles. They were just outside. And they had horns.
They did have horns. Also, Ninjamis, fun fact, is named after the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
The etymology in that paper is in allusion to that totally rad, fearsome foursome epitomizing shelled success, which is just an amazing etymology. And then it's like Emmys, which is turtle, So,
right.
just absolutely fantastic name. No notes.
Oh, yeah.
So that was so the Paleocene Eocene Thermal Maximum PETM also culminated in like a small extinction event for some groups, but it wasn't enough to be considered like a mass extinction. Which, I mean, of course, anytime the temperature of the planet dramatically rises or falls in a geologically short period of time, you're going to have an extinction or a series of extinction events. It's just going to happen. Organisms can't necessarily adapt in some places fast enough, so it happens. Anything you'd like to add?
Just that I'm hoping that pretty soon we can get to the Eocene where the first mammals occurred. Allegedly, according to at least one person I've heard talk about it.
We can say his name, Stephen Meyer. The video's out now. It's out. Everybody should go watch the video that I co-wrote for Professor Dave, which is dunking on Stephen Meyer.
Dunking pretty hard too.
Yeah, Stephen Meyer is dumb. So there's that. All right. Well, if nothing else, then next slide, please. Okay, so here we have And we mentioned this in the last video, or sorry, the last installment of this series, where we have crown mammals that are not still alive, who managed to beat the meteorite and survive into the early Cenozoic, such as the multituberculates and the dryolestids. But they kind of fizzled out early on. Maybe they just couldn't compete. They couldn't,
they couldn't hack it against the majesty of the placental mammals, obviously.
Well, or maybe the monotremes or the marsupials. Who knows? There are, interestingly, in Hatteg Island, the little multituberculates managed to survive. It's like 3 or 4 genera, all from Hatteg Island. They all survived the Cretaceous impactor, and so and straggled over and into the Paleocene for a little bit. So
it's kind of like was it New Zealand still has sphenodons?
Yeah. So you get a few little stragglers here and there. Yes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, as we mentioned last time, primitive forms tend to survive better on islands because there are fewer and more advanced forms to compete with, typically. So these groups were all around. So, much to Meyer's chagrin, monotremes, marsupials, and placental mammals were all definitely around prior
by
to
the Cretaceous.
Eocene. Yeah, they were around. Prior to the end of the Cretaceous. In fact, the earliest placental mammal is considered, or I think the earliest is Fruitifossor, which is from latest Jurassic. So,
also, your elephant cartoon is adorable on there.
Well, he's not mine. He is David Grossnickel et al.'s elephant cartoon.
Well, thank you very much, David M. Grossnickel et al. I suspect it might have been part of the et al. Group, because my guess is that the artist was not lead author on that paper.
Probably not. Although, unless it's Darren Naish, because he can both draw and write technical papers.
True, but I feel like if Darren Naish were on this paper, he might actually be the lead author.
That's probably true. Yeah. Yep. Anything you want to add to this?
I mean, I think we already covered with the mammal diversity of at least the 3 major groups of mammals goes way farther back than the Cenozoic, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then once the non-avian dinosaurs were wiped out, then a lot of niches were left open. Although some avian theropods actually reclaimed a couple niches, or some sort of non-avian dinosaurian niches, like Gastornis and Forus rachis and a few other
terror birds,
scary birds. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Called aptly the terror birds.
Yeah, that's their common name, and they were pretty terrifying. They're taller than you are.
Yeah, I've seen images of the Gastornis skull next to an ostrich skull, and it's ridiculous.
I've seen a full Gastornis skeletal mount. It's it's intimidating.
Yeah, I bet it is.
It's I'll pass on meeting one of those in real life.
Yeah, who would have been preying on early horses and things like that.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Also,
there was
running crocodiles.
Planocranids. Do you have a slide on the Planocranids?
What's the next slide? I don't think I do, unless.
Oh my goodness.
Peter, next slide, please. Oh well, this is just sort of highlighting the diversity of.
All right, we might have to talk a little bit about Planocranids before we go on to the to the Eocene.
We'll absolutely do that. So this is just a sort of overview of placental mammal phylogeny. So you have, at this point in time, the consensus is leaning for placental mammals towards 2 clades. One is Atlantogenata, which is Afrotheres and Xenarthrans. So Afrotheres are the native African mammals, elephants, elephant shrews, golden moles, tenrecs, manatees, all those guys. And then Xenarthrans are the native South American mammals, or a group of native South American mammals like armadillos, sloths, and anteaters. And then the other group is Laurasiatheria, or is called Boreoeutheria, which contains the Laurasiatheres and the Euarchontoglires. So Laurasiatheria is probably most mammals. I guess you could just say it's most mammals. It's like hoof mammals, carnivorous mammals, Bats, a lot of like small insectivorous mammals like shrews and hedgehogs and moles. Those are all, and they all interestingly originated in North America, hence why they're called Laurasia theres. Laurasia is North America and Eurasia. And then Euarchonta glyra. Glyra refers to the rodents and lagomorphs, so the rabbits and the pica. And then Euarchonta refers to primates, as well as things you may or may not be familiar with, like tree shrews and colugos. Although actually tree shrews are up for debate whether they're Euarchonta. But colugos are definitely like sister to primates. So they're cute.
Yeah, but
guys.
Jackson, what good is half a wing?
A colugo is as good as half a wing.
Okay.
And they're adorable. Look up a picture of a colugo if you guys haven't seen it.
They're adorable from the dorsal side.
You know, I guess that's true. I should have clarified.
The ventral side is a little less adorable.
Yeah. I also appreciate. So there is. I'll give my spicy take. The correct Laurasia phylogeny is Scrotifera.
Oh,
that's my spicy take. So
okay.
what Scrotifera refers to, and it's very weirdly named.
It's poorly named.
It's very poorly named. But well, basically all the phylogenies basically agree that like Eulipatifla, so the shrews, moles, and hedgehogs like branch most basally with regard to everybody else. Then it starts becoming a question of, well, I think typically bats are also considered to branch next. Then you have the fist fights. Where do carnivorans, the dog and cat-like carnivores, where do they branch with regard to the hooved mammals? So Scrotifera, which makes the most sense, argues that the dog and cat-like carnivorans are, they're grouped together, and that's also not really, no one's really disputing that, but they're sister to the pangolins, Phalidota. So that's what that argues. And then the odd and even hoof mammals, so that's Perissodactyla and Artiodactyla. Dapper, they did the thing at the bottom. They said Artiodactyla.
Yeah, Artiodactyl is bullshit.
But so Perissodactyls and Artiodactyls grouped together, which I think makes the most sense. Like morphologically, that makes clearly the most sense.
What about Noto ungulata then?
Oh, so Noto ungulata, from what I've seen, tends to like is like basally branching with regard to Perissodactyla.
Yeah, that's the latest I've seen too.
Yeah, that's typically what I've seen. I saw.
For those of you who don't know all of these words, Noto ungulata is an odd group of South American ungulates that went extinct. I think even before humans got there.
Yes, yeah, they were gone at I think like early Holocene, basically.
Yeah, I think around the time that the land bridge between North and South America forms, they start a steep decline as North American predators that they are not equipped to deal with start coming in.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I do have a slide on them, so we'll talk about them later on.
Oh, nice.
But I think and I've talked to some mammalogists, and they're like, yeah, Scrotifera makes the most sense. The reason this is a debate was there are some, or have been some papers. Scrotifera more recently seems to be the growing consensus, but there was debate for a while because there was a paper back in like 2010 or something like that that argued carnivorans were sister to Perissodactyla to the exclusion of Artiodactyla.
Nah, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, first of all, what do you expect to find in the fossil record for that? Like, how would that work? First of all, that means hooves evolved twice, which that's weird.
Well, as we're about to get into later on, they did evolve at least twice. So,
Yeah, I mean,
actually, maybe 3 times if we include the weird hadrosaur front feet.
I guess, but it's
still less parsimonious than having one origin for hooves among hoofed mammals.
Yeah. Plus, as we'll talk about in a little bit, there are some very early, there's some Paleocene placental mammals which look like what the ancestor of all hoof mammals probably would have looked like. So, yeah, I don't really buy the what's the other Pegasopherae is what it's called. Pegasopherae. So yeah, that's Perissodactyla plus Carnivora.
And pangolins.
Yeah, I think it's Carnivorans and pangolins, and then Perissodactyla.
I would say that
Pegasopherae
is the clade of carnivorans and
Yes.
pangolins.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't really buy it. My spicy take. So, I mean, it seems like a fair number of mammalogists agree with that at this point. So, maybe not so spicy. It's a mild take.
Here's a spicy take. When you find out that cetaceans nest inside Artiodactyla, you don't get to rename Artiodactyla. What you get to do is you get to demote Cetacea from being an order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Make it a suborder. I don't care. Make it whatever arbitrary rank that you want to assign it is fine, as long as it's below order, and you don't get to rename things. That's why also if the Ornithoscelida hypothesis about ornithischians and theropods grouping together closer than sauropods. Sorry, that makes sauropods not dinosaurs if that's true. You don't get to just redefine Dinosauria because it's inconvenient for you that previously that members that previously met the definition no longer do based on new conclusions.
Right.
Sauropods are now dinosauriformes.
Right, because it's Columba, Livia plus Triceratops, isn't it? Isn't that dinosaurs?
That's one of them. I've also seen Tyrannosaurus Rex and Triceratops horridus. I've also seen Iguanodon and Megalosaurus because for historical reasons, those were like the first two discovered.
Right. Okay.
But all of those definitions would cover the same group of animals, whether or not Ornithoscelida is true.
Right.
But if Ornithoscelida is true, it excludes sauropods. Sorry.
Yep, you have to find they'll become like dinosauriforms or dinosauromorphs instead of dinosaurs.
Yep, not dinosaurs anymore.
Yep,
that's just how it is.
Yeah, nothing. Which is funny because nothing about their anatomy, their behavior, none of that changes as a result. These are
as animals. It's like when Pluto was no longer a planet. It's like the object itself changed not at all.
It just felt a little bit sadder.
No, it didn't even do that because it didn't give a crap what stupid humans, several light hours away, were talking about. Like, it doesn't care. It's just going around, orbiting its barycenter along with Charon and a couple other moons, hanging out outer reaches of the solar system, being all cold, having a Pluto-shaped marking on the object coincidentally called Pluto because of pareidolia. It's great stuff. Similarly, the sauropods wouldn't even care if they were still around. They would just go on eating some plants.
Yep. They would just be vibing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next slide, please.
And they would still be stem birds.
All right. We're moving on. So here's some sundry Paleocene fauna. So like I said, it's difficult to pick like particular lineages that were like evolving in this time period because it's so short, and adaptive radiations typically take like several million years. So you might have an adaptive radiation that starts in the Paleocene but terminates like in the Eocene or Oligocene. That happens. So
now I'm seeing something on here that I was under the impression was just made up.
Oh my god. Okay. All right, folks. R and Raw put out a video a few weeks ago, a month ago, I don't know, time isn't real, in which he was critiquing the was it Genesis Apologetics, I think, and he sent me the script for this.
Pretty sure it was Big Wave Dave from Genesis Apologetics.
No, it was the two idiots.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
John and Jane, I think.
Yeah, John and Jane. They were doing a whole like Jeopardy bit, which was so stupid. But he sent me the script or whatever, and he was like, "Hey, can you make sure it looks fine?" And so I had to watch the video, of course, to make sure the script sounded fine. And in doing so, at one point, Jane says that like mesonychids were imaginary, and I had to rewind multiple times to make sure I heard her correctly, that she did in fact say mesonychids are an imaginary group of animals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just so I don't want to straw man her. If she didn't in fact say that, I don't want to claim that she did say that.
It's certainly what the words that she said meant. Maybe they weren't intended to mean that, but it's what they meant.
Right, right.
And it wasn't super ambiguous either.
Yeah, I was kind of like, did she really say that? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
So mesonychids were considered, even by the time they made this video, the information they were dealing with was way outdated. But mesonychids were considered to be the ancestors of whales for quite a long time. They have some cranial and skeletal morphology, which seem sort of similar to like early whales like Basilosaurus. And so it seemed like these guys were.
Well, I mean, they were Artiodactyls who were predatory. It's the kind of thing you would expect.
Right, exactly. Which, eventually researchers did find actual, predatory ancestors of whales, who were much more closer to them, of course. But Cenozoics, which was an early mesonychid. So these guys are, I don't remember where exactly among the ungulates they nest nowadays. Do you happen to know offhand?
You keep going. I'm going to find out.
Okay. So another guy we have is Ossipea, which is a little shrew-like guy. I think they found just like parts of his jaw, and that's why just his head is pictured here. Which is an early Afrotheria. So that little guy is probably what the common ancestor of elephants and manatees and tenrecs and elephant shrews look like. Which, again, kind of makes sense. I mean, most mammals in the Mesozoic were little shrew-like guys, so makes sense that the common ancestors of the major clades would also look pretty shrew-like. They wouldn't be super specialized, be very generalized little insectivores.
Oh, we're seeing Mesonychia is currently being considered to be just outside of crown ungulata.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. I can believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, again, like, the common, because, well, if they're outside of crown ungulata, so the common ancestor of like Ferae and ungulata, or Eungulata, whichever one it is, I don't know, was probably something omnivorous, right? That would kind of make, or carnivorous even, that probably makes sense. So I'm not super surprised by that. Purgatorius is an early, it's so primitive that like it's probably a stem primate. And you have to remember that, like, colugos and rodents also probably, all those guys, rodents, colugos, or the ancestors of colugos, the ancestors of primates, all probably would have looked very similar at that time. So while the thinking is generally Purgatorius is probably a primate, it could be like a stem rodent or something. These are all fairly close at that time.
It's like when you go back in time, different members of what are today very, very distinct lineages look more and more similar.
It's wild. Wouldn't that be
Weird.
like the case if evolution were true or something?
Yeah, it's sort of a prediction of the idea of common ancestry.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, we also have Berry Lambda, which is a pantodont. Pantodonts, I think those were also ungulates. I think they were like the first. Can you look that up? I have forgotten. They were a group of. They were like one of the first larger herbivorous mammals in the Paleocene, or in the Cenozoic, I should say. So they attained relatively large sizes fairly early on. Oh, nope, I'm not dealing with that. He's a creationist.
Simolesta.
He's just going.
Oh, he doesn't know the difference between a time zone and a geological epoch. Oh, that's cute.
He's gone. Bye-bye.
Aww.
Not dealing with that.
I was going to wait until he called people names again.
Do you say they're simolestids?
Yes.
Okay, so they're way out there. So remember, simolestids like fall outside of.
Yeah, they're not placentals.
Like, they're not even placental mammals. Yeah, they're way out there. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. So that's one of those groups. So we have this group that's not closely related to anything alive today, which they had their own radiation. They did fairly well. So, what you gonna say?
I was just gonna say they do nest closer to placental mammals than they do to marsupials. So
Yeah.
they branch after the split between Metatherians and Eutherians, and they're on the Eutherian side of that, but they are outside of actual placental mammals.
Right. And also the early like simolestids also look like little shrews.
Which, by the way,
crazy.
also means that their lineage probably diverged sometime in the Cretaceous.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Not the Eocene.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's just so stupid I can't let it go.
No, you're right. It's
almost as stupid as asking what time zone the dinosaurs died in.
The thing about that, the paper. So Meyer, when he said that, was referencing a paper that he co-authored with Gunter Beckley, who, while he is an invertebrate he is an invertebrate paleontologist.
He knows better.
So even though vertebrates are not his specialty, he definitely knew better. Meyer can maybe get away with it because he has nothing in terms of paleontology or biology as a background. But Gunter Beckley cannot get away from that. He definitely knew better, and that means he just lied. So,
well, it's sort of like this, right? Just because you're a vertebrate paleontology doesn't mean you can get away with saying like, oh yeah, Opabinia, that's from the Permian. No,
right.
No one thinks that. You wouldn't make that kind of claim without getting some kind of like double checking. It certainly wouldn't pass through real peer review because they're going to send you more than one kind of paleontologist.
Right. Yeah, they're even like micro paleontologists, which is pretty cool. You get to study like foraminifera and that sort of stuff.
That's the kind of thing they make you do if you're under 5 feet tall. You go into paleontology. You have to go into micro paleontology. You have to be this tall to study dinosaurs.
I could definitely see that as like gatekeeping paleontologist, the controversy you never hear about because it's such a well kept secret,
Also, it's really hard for the micropaleontologists to win the snake fight at the end of their PhD defense, their dissertation defense. Yeah, because in case you guys don't know, you have to fight a snake at the end.
It's basically Titanoboa.
Well, it varies by school, and they usually keep more than one snake, right? How big the snake is and how venomous it is depends on how much they liked your paper that you're submitting.
So I mean, like if they really liked it, you just have to fight like a corn snake or something.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is a little like garter snake or a corn snake, and then if they really hate it, they're like, hey, this is a black mamba. Good luck.
Right.
That's why the creationists never really make it because they always get sent against the black mambas. That's why it's hard for them to get their PhDs in paleontology.
Hey, if one guy can successfully keep a green mamba for extended periods of time, then I don't know.
He's not fighting it.
That's true. He handles it regularly, I guess.
But if he tried to punch it, I bet it would bite him.
Tired of you. Oh, he bit me. Oh, no time to run to the hospital because there's no cure.
It doesn't matter how much time you have to run to the hospital. Hospital's not going to help, man. You're done.
Yeah. All right. Anything to add on these sundry mammals?
Just that Mesonykid sagittal crest really, really, really makes me not want to ever be bit by one. Because my goodness, would that be a strong bite?
Yeah, I mean, look at those freaking canines. Good lord.
Yeah.
Things are horrifying. Yeah, so he would not be fun to mess with. So Next slide, please. Yeah, early ungulates.
Hooray.
So, yeah, here we go. So Criacus is a basal ungulate, and even though it looks like a little raccoon or something like that, like some sort of little raccoonid, is actually an early ungulate. And they know this because it has these little like whorls in its ear that are diagnostic of ungulates. But it looks like,
I mean, it's plantargrade. Come on.
Right.
It's not even ungulagrade.
Right. I mean, but he looks like, maybe the common ancestor or maybe their common ancestor with like carnivorans lived recently.
Yeah,
like
it does kind of look like a basal ferren, huh?
Yeah, like they're still kind of diverging, like they've done that recently or something. I don't know. Just a
weird
wild shot in the dark. Ectoconus is a yeah, Paraptychidae. So that's another group of like very basal ungulates. Certainly none are around anymore, but just kind of showing again this very, very basal ungulate or stem ungulate.
None are around that we know of.
morphology.
You never know. If the Congo can hide a sauropod, it can hide anything.
That's true. Yeah, maybe they're on like some Pacific island or something. We just haven't. No one's hit it yet. So
That reminds me, I made a video. It's not out yet, but this guy was like, "No one lives in this swamp in the Congo." I'm like, "Well, what about these people?" And then like 10 minutes later, he's like, "Well, except for these people who live there." Like, so it's not an uninhabited swamp, is it?
Well, the thing I love about the Congo is like researchers go there every year. Like lots of researchers go to the Congo every year to study a variety of organisms. Whether plants or I actually worked for a professor who studied bats in the Congo.
Nice.
So he went there. The idea that just nobody goes there except like, a couple people and they take very grainy, far off photos of things. Like, nah.
The whole area is just a big black box for all of humanity.
Nope. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Then Hyopsodus is an early, well, both Hyopsodus and Phenacodus are both early Perissodactyls. It's kind of hard. I have like a hard time finding like very early like Paleocene Artiodactyls. Don't know why that is.
It's because the Perissodactyls were doing better. They were more diverse.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
It's sort of like the reverse of what's going on today, where Perissodactyl it's on its last legs, guys. Sorry. Artiodactyl is it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah. There were lots and lots of different little sort of stem ungulate or stem Perissodactyl groups at this time, all doing their own stuff. And look at that long tail.
Like turning into gorilla sloth horses.
Gorilla sloth horses. That's
exactly what I mean.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I mentioned them later on.
Good.
So anything
you guys will know when we get to the gorilla sloth horses.
Yeah. Oof. Yes.
It will be very obvious. No, I think I'm good on this section.
Okay.
I've been taking us into enough tangents already.
All right, and here we have just another look at the Paleocene Eocene thermal maximum. So this is polar ocean equivalent. So this is temperature on one side, and then you have millions of years ago, and you have dissolved oxygen on the other side. So as you can see, so we are on the bottom right of that graph, and the Paleocene and the PETM is up there sort of near the top left. I think it was a little bit warmer than it is today. That's just my guess. Seems to be the case.
Yeah.
Although we are rapidly approaching warmer times with our use of fossil fuels. So
hey, look, according to this graph, that was called an optimum, so I don't see what the big deal is.
Fair enough, I guess. Yeah, it was optimal for the temperature, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, let's kick it into high gear, man. Let's get to that optimum, right?
Yeah.
No, this is sarcasm, by the way, guys. That's not actually my position.
I think okay. So also, I know I sent this to you. You saw it. I saw a book recently that's titled "The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels."
Yeah.
And the argument of this book is we should continue using fossil fuels because one, environmental damage, not really that bad, guys. Don't overblow it. And the second thing is, well, some people are happy right now. So,
look, if you want to make a moral case for fossil fuels, you can do it. That's just not the way to do it. Here's how you do it, right? There are currently people right now who are suffering and in many cases dying because they do not have access to sufficient high density energy sources that they can use to improve their lives. And it is a big question whether or not you can morally justify continuing the suffering of these people because of hypothetical future people who do not currently exist. That's the moral argument for fossil fuels. Now, there are lots of counters that I can give, like there are other options to help alleviate that suffering, or while it might be okay for those people to increase their fossil fuel use, that's a relatively small portion of the human population as a whole who are in that situation. There's a whole lot of counters, but that's the way you make the moral argument in favor of fossil fuel use. If you point out current suffering that can be alleviated by fossil fuels, and then you point out the fact that hypothetical future people have less moral standing than currently existing suffering people. It's really not that hard. You don't have to lie about climate change.
All right.
But you do have to deal with the fact that there are going to be good counters. So, it's almost like being some kind of moral philosopher isn't just really easy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Hence why I don't do moral philosophy on this channel. So here we go.
You do it off the air.
Right. I'm just here to make Jackson laugh. I don't believe that is the case. I think that's called a lie. What I saw something else. Oh no. Oh no. So all of you, no one is free from sin. Oh.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not going to comment on sin during our history of life on Earth.
All right. Next slide, please. So the Eocene, we have reached the Eocene. Yay! Woo.
Finally, the dawn of mammals.
The very first. So after like Dimetrodon died off in the Permian, there were no mammals, no synapsids, period, for the entirety of the Mesozoic. And then in the Eocene, the first mammals dropped from heaven itself. They just,
God was like, bam, giraffe.
Time to make some shrews for reasons I don't know. I don't care.
Lots and lots of shrews.
So some interesting things were happening in this time period, climatically or geologically, which caused climatic changes, which then caused evolutionary and ecological changes. Kind of cool. Everything's sort of like all dependent on other things that happen. It's almost like things happen and impact other things.
Jackson, biogeography was invented by Satan to test your faith.
Well, Satan won. Sorry. He wrote his books on finches are too good. I couldn't. God's got to do better. God's got to do better. Sorry.
God's gonna write the tell-all on like flatworms, and Jackson's gonna be right back to theism.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he knows what would convince me, so that's all I'm saying. So India was actually connected to Africa, and this was the case for like most of the Mesozoic, and pretty most of the Paleozoic too, right?
I believe so, but I'm honestly not as confident about that.
Well, at any rate, most of the Mesozoic, we'll just say that. So India was attached to Africa. It was part of Gondwana, along with South America, Africa, Madagascar, Australia, and Antarctica. And
we forgot to talk about the planocranids.
Oh crap! You're right. Go ahead. Do it.
Okay, planocranidae. It's a group of. They're not quite crocodilians. They're crocodiliforms, so they're close to modern crocodilians, but they're not quite in that group. They had hooves. They might have actually walked on the tips of their toes, like cows and horses and whatnot. And they ran across the land in Asia, Europe, and North America to hunt down terrestrial mammals, and they were covered in armored plates. And they're horrifyingly awesome. Some that you might want to look up if you're interested are Bovarosuchus, Duerosuchus, there you go, and Planocrania. And now that's suchus with Suchus, so like Bovericus. Duerosuchus, Suchs, and Planocrania, Planocrania. Planocrania. Planocranids, awesome. There's still a whole bunch of really cool reptiles going on during the Paleocene. It's very, very neat.
Absolutely, that I can agree with. All right, back to the Eocene. No, it was a good point. There are some cool crocodilians, crocodilomorphs, crocodiliformes,
crocodiliforms. I just double checked crocodiliforms.
So India detached from Africa and for its own personal tectonic reasons. Who
Like, it just wasn't working
cannot
out, and they
ask.
needed a break.
Right, exactly. And who can blame them, honestly, after being attached
Yeah.
for like over 100 million years? I'd probably want a break too. What can you say?
Yeah, Africa was getting a little possessive, and Asia looked like a good time. So
Yeah.
and
So
we
he
just left.
made a break for it.
Yeah.
And by making contact with Asia, pushed up these mountains like no one's ever heard of, called the Himalayas or something. You probably haven't heard of them. They don't really matter.
Yeah. I think they
but-
make salt lamps there or something.
Yeah, something like that. But as a result, this brought the temperature of the atmospheric temperature down because, as we discussed before, major erosion events tend to suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and so this coincided with like the cooling of Antarctica, which had also detached from
Africa.
the other pieces of Gondwana, yeah, and so South America, Australia, all those guys, and so now you get these currents circling South America, which are South America, Antarctica, which are not going back up to the equator; they're just circling Antarctica. So they're cold and they're staying cold, and this is helping bring the temperature of Antarctica down, and that's still
What I'm
happens.
hearing is that the real solution to climate change is just pushing India even harder into Asia. We're gonna get those catastrophic plate tectonic guys to work their magic, but only around India.
I mean, after all, Rodinia, was it Rodinia? No, Rodinia was after. The cryogenian glaciation happened because maybe it was Rodinia. I think it was Rodinia was in the entirety of like our continents were in equatorial regions, which was doing major erosion and majorly pulled down the climate. So yeah, just push all of our continents down to the equator. They'll get like eroded, and then boom, snowball Earth again, just like we like it, nice and chilly.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to pass on that one.
You don't want snowball Earth? Big sad.
Look, I intentionally moved to the hottest inhabited region of the United States because it was the hottest inhabited region of the United States.
Yes. So that happened. I think weren't like I think a large portion of like horse and rhino evolution has occurred like in India and stuff like that, which is kind of neat.
Well, I mean, it starts in North America, and then
Right.
it goes across into Eurasia, and then a lot of stuff happens down in like Central Asia and India, and then they start getting into Africa, going extinct in North America, and then some weird bald, sweaty apes end up like taming some of them twice.
Yeah.
It's very
Nice.
weird.
Some darn monkeys also rafted from Africa to South America. They were called the Platyrrhines. That happened.
Yes.
Because
Now-
as you could, go ahead.
I was going to say, now, one thing is that at this time, you can just see it on the map that Africa and South America are significantly closer at
Yes.
this point. So this is not the kind of thing that we're likely to see happening again. Also, rodents made the same trip.
Yeah, and I think a couple other like small vertebrates made it, but yeah.
Yeah, so that is one of the things where, like, nowadays, I've heard some people who reasonably say that seems like an implausibly long trip.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, today, yes, that would be implausibly long. And it's still a very rare thing, even during the Eocene when they're much, much closer, but at least it's
Yes.
possible in the Eocene.
Right. But also, fun fact, primates made the trip to South America not once, but twice. A second rafting event was found to have occurred in South America with the discovery of a little primate called Eucalypithecus. So
But they
Platyrrhines
didn't last, huh?
They did not last, apparently. But
Yeah,
what it shows is that, like, I mean, yeah, was it difficult? Yes. Was it impossible? No. And it happened at least twice, possibly even more times, because, I mean, you know, if you're a small vertebrate and you live in trees, and maybe a storm breaks that tree, and you raft for like a couple days, and that's all it takes to reach like South America by rafting, that's not terrible odds.
Yeah, you have a fair chance of making it.
Yeah, it's not the worst odds in the world. So, plus a lot of small mammals also will like slow down their metabolism in like rough times for different things, for different reasons. So, yeah, not impossible. Then yeah, Antarctica detached from South America and Australia by the end of the period and began cooling. So the cool thing is Australia and South America were sort of indirectly attached to each other via Antarctica. And so for a while, researchers were trying to figure out where the like early where the
Marsupials.
the early marsupials who were ancestral to the Australian marsupials came from. Did they
And
build them-
ancestral to the South American marsupials, because there's still extant marsupials that are native in South America.
Well, right. Like they were in South America originally. The question was, did they get to Australia via Africa or Antarctica? So they predicted, then they did more geologic research and they realized, okay, Africa detached way too early. So it seems unlikely they rafted like twice.
Yeah.
So it was probably more likely that they just walked across Antarctica and made it eventually to Australia. So you could say they predicted.
They predicted. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they made a prediction about where and when some fossil marsupials would be. And
Now hold up.
hold on. All right.
Okay. So now are predictions on their own the gold standard of science? I'm just double checking.
On their own?
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty
If I
darn
just
good.
make a prediction, if I just make a prediction, is that the gold standard?
No, you just make one up, just, throwing darts through the air. No.
What makes it the gold standard?
If it is backed up by data
Okay.
beforehand.
I'm just double checking. So what happened in this case?
So they had their geologic data, which indicated that Africa had moved away too early. And we had fossils on both ends, South America, obviously, and Australia. And so the only logical route that seemed to present itself would be Antarctica in the Eocene before it had detached. So they said, let's search some early Cenozoic strata in Antarctica. And Dapper, do you want to guess what the researchers found?
The remains of the Great Flood of Noah.
Well, you are wrong. No.
Oh, damn it! Wait, was it early marsupial fossils?
It was actually the Tower of Babel. They were wrong the whole time about where it was.
Oh, gee, that's really off.
They did, in fact, find early marsupials and monotremes. Found both of them in Antarctica.
Shocking.
I know, big shook. Well, big shook if you don't subscribe to evolution.
I'm literally shaking right now.
Yep, novel testable predictions, as JG points out.
That then turn out to be supported. That's the key little bit right there.
Yep. Yeah, that actually panned out. Yep, he just wrote the same thing. Yep. So, exactly right. It's really great when that happens because it shows like we're probably on the right track. Maybe not everything is correct, but we're at least on the right track.
It's hard to be broadly correct, or sorry, it's hard to be mostly wrong while getting repeated predictions correct. It tends to be if you can repeatedly predict future data, you're at least mostly right.
Right. Exactly. And in this case, I don't think any major conclusions about this have been overturned. So, anyway, anything you want to add?
No, I think I've covered everything I want to.
All right, next slide, please. Afrotheria. So these are some Eocene Afrotheres. And Afrotheres, so you guys remember from a few slides ago, unless you have like Dory memory, in which case you should probably get that checked out. Unless you forget that I just said that, in which case, who cares? This guy who way preceded everybody else in Afrotheria was a little shrew-like guy. There were no, he didn't have a trunk, he didn't have big horns, he just a little shrew-like dude. But now, by the Eocene, you have had some, there's been some radiation in Africa because the Afrotheres were kind of it. for African mammals. So you had elephants who were evolving in. Well, originally elephants evolved in a semi-aquatic habitat, which makes sense because their closest relatives, the ancestors of Saurians, were also evolving in semi-aquatic habitats. Strange how that happens. But anyways,
Weird. And
Very
I
weird.
seem to remember their skeletons being very similar.
they are, especially the hip region for both Merotherium and Pesosiren has been compared, and researchers were like, these are very similar in terms of gait. So
It's like another instance of now quite distinct lineages, and you look in the past at their earliest representatives, they are much, much more similar to them than they are today.
oh no, it's bonkers.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep pointing that out, by the way, because it's very consistent and very obvious.
Yeah, there are some strange people out there who don't seem to get that. But anyways,
Yeah, weird.
there were also some cool Afrotheres who looked sort of like rhinos, but just weren't. I think the way what was it like the Nigel Marvin documentary where he like went back in time to went to the Cretaceous and saw mosasaurs and went to the Paleozoic and saw like Eurypterids and Sethicanthus and Dunkleosteus. Do you remember the name of it? Because I can't remember the name.
It sounds familiar, and I'm pretty sure I've seen it, but no, I do not know the name.
Anyway,
didn't he swim in like a shark cage with Dunkleosteus?
He did. Yes, that happened.
Yeah, then I'm definitely remembering the same docu-series that you are.
Yeah. And Dunkleosteus acted exactly like he was
a
like,
great white.
let me go, let's take a look, see over here what's happening. So the way he described our Cenotherium was looks like a rhino, behaves like a hippo, but related to elephants, which
Yeah. I wonder if
cool.
it tasted like an elephant.
Do you know what elephant tastes like?
Maybe.
Okay. Interesting. So yeah, it also seemed to be semi-aquatic. So technically all three of these guys are in a group called Tethys. So they were probably paddling around on the coast of the Tethys Sea, which still took up basically like the Mediterranean and like part of part of Southwest Asia, and then like southern Europe. So the Tethys Sea was sort of that area. And so on the southern end, basically, you had the Afrotheres paddling around, and on the northern end, you had the early cetaceans paddling around. So cool stuff. Everybody's testing out new stuff. So, anything you want to add?
Just that Smitty says it tastes like mammoth. Well, joke's on you. Mammoths were elephants.
Yeah, it tastes like.
Oh, so you mentioned the gorilla sloth something that you're going to get to?
We're not there yet.
No.
Gorilla sloth horse. We're not there yet.
Yeah, can I? So, Pesosiren. Couldn't we call that the pit bull hippo seal? Because once you see it,
I'm here for it.
You can't unsee it.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah,
I say it's a good idea.
Fine by me.
Okay.
Pit bull hippo seal.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
That's going to be in the literature now. Pit bull hippo seal.
Okay. I got a mention.
Next slide, please.
I'll get a mention in the next book then. Okay.
Oh, here we are, the early Artiodactyls. So like I said, these guys start really diversifying in the Eocene. We got Diacodexus and Elamerix. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but I think Elamerix is near like the hippos. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong. Archaeotherium is a member of the Entelodonts. So the Entelodonts were another group of these big toothy ungulates. Like, thank goodness we don't have big carnivorous ungulates running around anymore.
It's sort of like, imagine if a pig were the size of a large horse. And, pigs are omnivores. They'll eat all sorts of things. They'd eat you if you were small enough.
Right. Yeah,
and you would be small enough if you were to meet an entelodont.
Right. Yeah, these guys are also, I think they nest just outside the whale hippoclade. Whipomorpha.
One of the best named clades. See, you get great stuff like Whipomorpha, and then you ruin it with things like Artiodactyl or Pancrustacea. Get out of here, guys.
Maybe I don't know which one was first, but maybe they did like set Artiodactyl and then redeem themselves with Whipomorpha. They were like, "We're sorry, taxonomy gods. We offer as tribute Whipomorpha."
Maybe.
That's what I'm going with. That's my story. Anything?
And Smitty does point out that we have big boars, and yes, huge boars are in fact quite dangerous to humans. However, they don't actively hunt humans. I feel like Antelodons would have.
Yeah, no, I don't think they would have passed up a human if given the opportunity. All right, next slide, please. All right, whales, another group of artiodactyls that are definitely not set artiodactyls.
They are cetaceans, though.
They are cetaceans, whatever rank that occupies nowadays. Maybe suborder, who knows?
All the ranks are just made up nonsense.
It's true. It's true. They are. Just
they mean
nonsense.
Literally nothing.
So,
which is why it's so odd to say that separate ancestry stops at one of them.
Yes, it does. It's very, very weird when people say like common ancestry goes only up to the family, but like you either have 100,000 members in your family or just one.
Yeah, and
like,
especially since family doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's nothing. It doesn't say anything about your genetics, about your behavior, your ecology, your morphology. Literally nothing.
Doesn't even say anything about your divergence time.
Nope, nothing at all.
It's a completely made up thing that humans invented, and then some group of humans are like, this might actually be some kind of significant, real thing about reality. It's like as if some humans decided that, hey, you know what? Maybe the word whale is actually the intrinsic thing that the universe calls these whales. Like, no, you just happen to speak English. That's dumb.
Right. So whales are a pretty cool group because they underwent some very radical evolutionary transformations in a relatively short period of time, like about 10 million years.
Mm-hmm.
They went from being pretty much fully terrestrial to pretty much fully aquatic. And that's pretty cool. Like they went super extreme with a lot of their specializations, much more so than like, we met the placodonts, however you pronounce it, in a previous episode. And they just kind of evolved like, they got some paddles and stuff like that, which is cool and all. It's all really nice.
And kick-ass shells.
Yeah, some of them got some really cool shells. But, these guys, like, they can't move on land at all today. They just can't. And so...
to be fair, ichthyosaurs went through similarly extreme adaptations, although they took longer to do it.
Right. I don't actually even know what the timeline is for, like, for ichthyosaur evolution. I mean, you see the...
So our earliest Triassic ichthyosaurs are definitely things that could still move around on land if they had to, although they would be awkward like a sea turtle.
But I mean, like, in terms of time period.
So it took them... I'd have to double check, but I feel like it was somewhere close to around like half of the Triassic to go from like fully terrestrial to like, no, you're not coming back on land and you are obligate oviviviparous rather than just oviparous. For those of you who might not be familiar, oviviviparous means that you retain the egg inside of the female's body and it hatches in there and then it is released from the reproductive tract. Yeah. And it looks like they were probably oviviviparous, although... Look, reptiles are currently independently evolving a placental style reproductive system in a few lizards. So, like, is that impossible for ichthyosaurs? No, it's not.
Also, viviparity in lizards is also correlated with having like specific endogenous retroviruses, which is kind of cool. What does that say about like amniote evolution as a whole?
Well, we do in fact know that some of the genes involved in placental reproduction are in fact neofunctionalized ERVs. So,
right, like the syncytin genes are definitely refunctionalized ERVs. Like, there's no question at this point. They are definitely were viruses and are not doing their original virusy things anymore.
Yeah. So viruses have a tendency to make various things that help suppress your immune system, which it's also a handy thing to do if it just so happens that your sorry, your reproductive strategy involves you sharing tissue with a growing fetus.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the kind of thing that your body would normally tend to just absolutely target and destroy, which does still happen. I mean, that is a cause of miscarriages in placental mammals. But the fact that placental mammals manage to actually have this as a successful reproductive strategy means that they have to some degree, suppress the immune system in pregnant females. And the genes that are used to do that are, in fact, derived from viral genes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It should also be noted, nobody ever suggested that like all ERVs or all junk DNA as a whole were like always non-functional and could not be refunctionalized. That was never a thing anybody suggested.
Well, so it's really weird. It's something some non-experts have suggested.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. It's something no experts ever suggested. No geneticists ever said all junk DNA is just totally
trash.
Useless.
Get rid of
can
it.
never be used again. Like, nope. That's not a thing they ever said. So stop lying, please. Thank you. So
I was gonna say I like the intermediate nasal position for Zygorhiza.
Yes, exactly. So so your early cetaceans like Indohyus and Pakicetus, these guys are showing characters, including like their ratios of particular isotopes that indicate they were living, almost entirely on land, but maybe like hunting in the water, perhaps. So they were like, those teeth are for catching fish, right? So they were eating fish, but they're doing it in fresh water. First of all, they're not doing it in salt water. And they are staying near shore. These guys are not paddling long distance. They also have the nares, right? Their nasal passages at the very end of their snout, like all terrestrial mammals at the very start of their evolution, but it starts moving progressively back. It's in fact called nasal drift. It's a well-documented and studied phenomenon.
It's not the same as nasal drip.
Nope. And there's a group of protists called drips, and I don't think they can make your nose drip. I don't remember, but
do they live in the nose of anything?
Some of them are like fish parasites. I don't think.
Also, they're a group of what, Jackson?
Anyways,
no, you're not going to get away with
this.
There is no such thing as protists, Jackson. I told you I wasn't going to let you say it. You're not going to make me a liar, Jackson.
So, as whales became progressively more aquatic, their nose moved, their nasal passage moved progressively further back on their head until now it's basically atop the head. It's above the eyes, essentially, and so it's not functioning like noses originally did. They're not smelling things underwater with that nose, because it turns out noses don't work super well underwater, at least for mammals. Don't work very well.
Cetaceans basically have lost all functionality of all their genes associated with smell, with the exception of some mysticetes have like a couple functioning smell receptors.
Right. Yeah, they've even lost I think the part of the brain that's involved in smelling. It's just there's no need for it. There just isn't.
They can't use it.
Yeah. So yeah, Pakicetus up there. So the cool thing about Pakicetus is it does not look very whaley, but Pakicetus has the unique inner ear structure of whales. He's got a little bone called an involucrum and a couple like other little factors in it which assign it to cetaceans. But the easiest thing to remember is like the involucrum. He also has a lot of like dental characters and cranial characters in common with like Basilosaurus. So there's that too. But he also has the unique Artiodactyl ankle bone or ankle bone shape for Astragalus, for the Astragalus. So he's got this unique Artiodactyl ankle bone, and then a unique whale inner ear. So that pretty conclusively puts whales in the Artiodactyls. Pretty conclusively. So if you like read maybe people who don't believe that whales are descended from Artiodactyls, that's never really their argument. Like the actual, they just don't even try with the morphology. They're like, the transition is too fast. They try to throw the waiting time problem at you, which is not a problem. Sorry, it's dumb.
Also, the waiting time problem is contradicted by some of their other points that they try to make, like creative heterozygosity.
Yes, it is. Yep. Sorry, can't have it both ways.
Yep, get a pick. Sorry that you need both.
Right. Yeah, you got to invoke like 2 new arguments to attack just one. So yeah, sorry.
Yeah, 2 mutually contradictory arguments.
And so Zygoriza, as you can see, both the hind limbs definitely are highly reduced. You can see them just like little bits back there, attached by like metal to the rest of the skeleton there. So little itty bitty. He's not using those to walk around anymore. But Basilosaurids were still using their hind limbs to mate. Interestingly, they were used as claspers, sort of like how sharks use theirs today and rays. So.
Presumably, it's a little speculative there.
Right. I happen to think that's probably what they function in. I mean, also so. They were still on the way out clearly, but
And here's one interesting thing. I have heard some people claim that the fact that the bones identified as pelvic bones in modern whales are involved in reproduction is an indication that they are in fact not vestigial pelvic bones. But here's a quick hint for those of you who are unfamiliar with mammal reproductive strategies. The pelvic bones are intimately involved in most reproductive strategies of most mammals. So the fact that they retained that secondary function while losing the locomotor functions doesn't really indicate that it's not a vestigial pelvis. Just a pro tip for any of you out there who might be hearing that argument.
Which also, I think it's a good time to point out, vestigial, as we pointed out in the evolution process series, never meant totally functionless.
Correct.
That's not a thing that it means or meant. So there are some people who, in like popular works, for instance, who will say vestigial means functionless. And technically, you can find examples of things that are essentially functionless, like
the erector pili muscles for humans.
Yep, that's one. We also mentioned the auricular muscles behind the ear or around the ear, because they're not helping. They're not doing their job in like turning your ears towards sound. They're just not.
Yeah, humans are super bad at that.
You're right. Yeah, even if you can wiggle your ears, like cool, but that's not really doing much for us as a species.
Little like party tricks aren't normally what we're talking about when we mean function.
Right. Yeah. So whales are pretty cool. They're neat guys. Have anything you would like to add?
Just that, sorry guys, we can't rename Basilosaurus. Every once in a while I get asked about this. The first name that's published for an organism is the one that has to kind of stick in terms of generic names. So even though, yes, I know that Basilosaurus is not a king lizard, it is in fact a whale.
No Zeuglodon. Sorry.
Yeah, there's nothing anyone can do about it. And in fact, I hear Iron Ra complain about that a lot. I think Iron Ra would like to rewrite the rules of taxonomy to get rid of priority, but like, dude, that would mean chaos. Sorry, we can't do
that. Yeah, no, it'd be bonkers.
Yeah.
But Zeuglodon was like a fun little name that some Basilosaurus specimens had for a while. But
yeah,
sorry,
got reanalyzed and referred to the Basilosaurus genus.
It's not even as bad as freaking Indricotherium, which also is like Paraceratherium and Baluchitherium. It just how many names it had in the literature.
that whole complex. I'm not even sure which one has priority at this point.
I think it's Indricotherium. I think.
Okay, well, it's too bad because I like Paraceratherium as a name, but whatever.
You know what? Actually, look it up. We're gonna go to the next slide and look that up, please.
All right, awesome.
All right. Next slide, please.
Before we go to the next slide, let's stick to the names a little bit. So, I think not enough people look at names and actually see what it says. Are you familiar with the silver fox experiment, Jackson?
I think I've heard of it once or twice. Yeah.
Yes. Do you know what happened there? What they selected for?
Tameness, I believe.
Exactly.
Well, one group was selected for tameness. There was a less well-known group that was selected for aggressiveness.
Yes.
You don't hear about them as much because they're not as adorable.
Yeah, they were pretty aggressive, but the silver fox has never killed humans. Whereas if we look at the top of the chart, there's an animal that is extremely dangerous to human beings, which is still around, the hippo. And if so they should have done the experiment with the hippo, because it literally says it in the name, hippopotamus.
Yep, the river horse.
Yeah, hippopotamus. Never mind.
Wow.
I get it. It's a pun.
Slow clap.
By the way, it is looking like Paraceratherium, in fact, has priority.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I mean, that is a cool name.
It is, yeah. It also means that it's one of the few instances where Ark Survival Evolved took a stance on a contentious issue and got it right.
Well, glad to hear it. You know, you love to see...
It's a game I like to play, but it's completely absurd and off the wall. But I do notice that we are, in fact, getting a picture of a skeletal reconstruction of a gorilla sloth horse.
Yeah, so we met... So if you guys remember, I hope, we met the early Perissodactyls a little while ago. And they did not look like rhinos or horses or gorilla... What'd you say? Gorilla sloth horses?
Sloth horses, yes.
Yeah, or gorilla sloth horses. They look like weird little guys. Like some look kind of raccoony. They had long tails, which there are not any Perissodactyls that have these long bony tails today. But now we are starting to get slightly more familiar looking forms. And also, as Dapper and I had discussed on more than one occasion, the earliest fossil horses and the earliest fossil rhinos are darn near identical, with the exception of their teeth. They're like molars.
Even then, you still have to be an expert at the morphology of those teeth in order to distinguish them. When we say like that's the only way, it's not like there's a radical difference. There's tiny little minutia in the way the cusps are formed that mean that this side is the horses are slightly better at eating like grass, and the rhinos are slightly better at eating like broad leaves and twigs.
Yep.
And other than that, they're essentially identical.
Yep. They're just starting to hit on different niches, one being a browser, as Dapper said, and one being a grazer.
If you were to see them both alive, you might put them in the same family.
Yeah, possibly even the same kind.
Yeah. Heck, I wouldn't even be all that surprised if people seeing them together at the same time were tempted to put them in the same genus.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, when you work with fish and you're like, okay, these look pretty similar. Oh, wait, this one has a black stripe on its back. Oh, God, it's a totally different family. I just maybe find out.
And then you get paddlefish and sturgeons hybridizing, so who cares?
Yeah, no, it's all out the window. So a couple. So well, I'll get to the more famous groups in a moment. So a less famous group, perhaps, was the gorilla sloth horses.
Yay!
Called the Calicotheres.
Should I explain why I call them that?
Go ahead, have at it.
So the thing is, on the one hand, they are, if you look at the skeletons, the bottom right skeleton on the leftmost illustration here, they do have rather horse-like skulls in sort of the broad sense of very stereotypically Perissodactyl type skulls. But then they are very, very long-armed, like a gorilla, with very short legs. So their stance is very much like a modern gorilla. But then on their front limbs, they have these gigantic claws that look like the claws of a sloth. So, you know.
Yeah, they're whack.
They're extremely unusual, and I wish they were still around because that would be wild.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. And so, yep, not around anymore. Big sad. And then we have.
I also noticed
go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, I noticed you're going for the big horn interpretation of Elasmotherium.
Right now, it's just like a knob, right?
Well, there's been some pushback on the hypothesis. It's not for sure at this point.
I put this together before that paper came out, so.
And you didn't update it immediately?
Look, if the guy who made that picture did it, updated it immediately. No, they just put like a censored on the horn because it's not, the jury's not in. So, something like that. So also the evolution of the horse. So the evolution of the horse, interestingly, was used as like one of the first like public demonstrations of evolution in the deep in the deep past. So Thomas Henry Huxley took I think basically all these guys like Heracitherium, Myohippus, and Merychippus, all those guys, and like he sort of put them in this line basically, which of course isn't the case. You can see that there's a lot of branches there, and probably even more in the actual family tree. Horses were there. There wasn't just this single line going from Heracitherium to today. There's lots and lots of branches, and it's all over the place. But so Huxley, he takes these, he takes like their hooves, their skeletons, because a bunch of these fossils were found in North America, so they were results of the bone wars between Marsh and Cope. And so, these guys are finding these fossils, and Huxley kind of takes them, and he's like, all right, look at this. We got the whole, a nice enough fossil series where we can show the evolution of these different characters. And that was pretty powerful.
Yeah. And the thing is, even though the orthogenetic display that you sometimes see in like older textbooks or whatnot is not the full picture, it is the case that is roughly the morphological sequence that you would expect to get from something like Heracitherium to Equus. So as long as you keep in mind the fact that it was not an orthogenetic march of progress, then it's not entirely inaccurate to display this morphological sequence like we have going from bottom to top here.
Right, exactly. So horses are cool guys. And then the story is sort of similar for rhinos. You have your small, sort of generalized herbivores who got progressively larger as time went on, and it just so happened that these guys had like a keratin sheath over bone on their nose, which was it sexual display or for protection. Well, either way, it got larger and larger, and now we have our rhinoceroses, who I'm sure everyone is familiar with. And I believe the evolution of these groups, or the radiation of these groups, is linked with like the opening of grasslands. Like as the Eocene climate was like drier, got towards the Oligocene became drier, and you had a reduction in like forests and opening of grasslands, and so you have these large running mammals that were evolving. So this is the herbivore side, and of course you also had large running carnivores too. Cats and dogs and things like that, who I'm pretty sure we'll talk about in a little bit.
Nice.
Anything you'd like to add?
No, I feel like I actually added a fair bit on this slide.
All right. Next slide, please.
Yay! We get an actual reconstruction. Ooh, from Julio Lacerda. I like his art.
Yes, he's pretty cool. I follow him on Twitter. He makes some really nice artwork.
Yeah.
Check him out if you're on Twitter. If you have happened to have accidentally fallen into the purgatory that is Twitter, look him up.
I hang out on Twitter with Purgatorium because it's so purgatory. Is it Purgatorius? Did I get it wrong?
Purgatorius.
US. You know what?
Anyway.
Gender is stupid Latin, so get rid of at least two of them. Purgatorium is Purgatorius.
This is another
noun now.
Right.
All right.
This was another like former ontogenetic sequence, or orthogenetic sequence. I did it.
Orthogenic. There you go.
Orthogenetic. Ontogenetic is development. This is not an ontogenetic sequence right here.
It actually kind of looks like one though.
Sort of, but I think the guy at the Eotitanops preceded these other guys in time. At any rate, so this was also used as an orthogenetic sequence. For anyone. Orthogenesis isn't just about like each fossil thing is like directly ancestral to the other thing. It was tied up with some weird like ideas about animal essences. Like they can't
life
stop.
Energy and
they just can't stop. Once they get going, evolving these structures, there's no way to stop them until they go extinct. Like
it was like evolutionary momentum basically.
Yeah, and that doesn't really work that way. This was also So this picture actually came out in like the early 1900s. So you basically had a period called the eclipse of Darwinism, and I don't remember if we talked about that in the evolution process.
I don't believe we did.
But so Darwin was a major force in evolution when he came out with Origin of Species and his other theories. Evolution was pretty much totally accepted by like most of the scientific community accepted evolution by the end of the 1800s.
Yeah.
The problem was, while basically everybody was on board with common ancestry, not everyone was on board with the mechanism. So in like Britain, for instance, they were holding up Darwin, of course, because he was their guy. But in France, there was a big resurgence of Lamarckism because Jean-Baptiste Lamarck was French. So he was their guy. And I think in America, Darwinism also went over fairly well.
To some extent, but then around like the time of the early 20th century, there was like, well, what about orthogenesis?
Right, yeah. You had some paleontologists who, I think Cope was one of them, wasn't he? Wasn't he proposing?
I'm not sure.
Well, at any rate, so you had some guys proposing orthogenesis, some guys, you had Lamarckism. Once Darwin died in, 1882, I think, you had a resurgence of some of these other non-Darwinian evolutionary ideas. You had like saltationism, so basically evolution is proceeding by these huge mutational jumps.
Crocodile lays an egg, duck pops out.
Right, yeah, and so all these different ideas were kind of all fighting, and it wasn't until the 1930s. So looking at research on like the early genetics research that had come out in the like the early 1900s, or so 19 aughts, teens, 20s, you have these researchers like Thomas Hunt Morgan and guys like that, and they're all putting out these different papers. And then in the 30s, you get Ronald Fisher, JBS Haldane, Sewell Wright, and they're like, okay, it seems to be that like evolution is largely natural selection acting on like minor variations over generations. And that won out because they provided mathematical models that explained it very well. And they incorporated like all the previous data that existed, which is how science progresses.
Yeah, you explain the data better. It's not just that you can accommodate the data. Anyone can accommodate data.
Mm-hmm.
You have to both retrodict and predict the data better than anyone else.
Yep. And so neo-Darwinism became the orthodoxy, essentially, in evolutionary biology in the 1930s. And then, of course, later on, you had other mechanisms added, like actual non-Darwinian mechanisms are a standard part of evolution nowadays, like genetic drift, endosymbiosis, stuff like that. That's epigenetics is part of it now, Evo Devo. So just more stuff added on top, because evolution happens in a lot of ways. There's a lot of stuff
like the
going
sprinkles on top of the banana sundae.
Yep.
I'm just hungry. Sorry. that's all. I'm just hungry.
So yeah, anything else you want to add to the slide?
That baby Calicotherium is adorable.
He is adorable. Agreed. Next slide, please. There's also, they follow like Calicotheres in Walking with Beasts. Sorry.
Yes,
in
there is.
Walking with Beasts series. There's
also some
episode.
Entelodonts.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Walking with Monsters is fun. Look, Walking with Beasts, all the Walking with are fun. However, do remember that these are like over a decade old at this point?
Yeah, like early aughts, weren't they?
Yeah, so like don't super trust everything that's in there, because not only was a whole bunch of it speculative at the time, we now know that a fair bit of the stuff that you're getting in there was not really true.
But there is a new really cool one coming out in the next couple days, which is like sort of based on the same sort of stuff, but obviously with modern reconstructions and modern data.
Yes. So. If you were a fan of the Walking With series, now I can't remember the name of it, but it's on
Prehistoric Planet, isn't it?
Yeah, Prehistoric Planet's on Apple Plus, and I certainly do not suggest that you watch it on Pirate. Don't sail the seven seas, everybody. Never do that.
Cough.
Just saying, don't do that. You obviously have to pay those starving movie producers. Jackson, they can't afford to gold plate their pool without you.
No. We should not tell anyone about F movies. Oops. I'm gonna get swatted.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that
sounds
is
made up.
Anyways, Carnivora morpha. So we're talking about outside the carnivorans. So
Would you say stem carnivores?
These are stem carnivores, exactly right.
Yay.
If there are any paleontologists, they might whack me for using like meiosis, because
I thought that was a crowned carnivore.
Well, no, because I was going to say because there are lots of things which have been. Well, that's the thing. It's like paraphyletic. Meiosis has been assigned to things that are like not considered meiosis anymore. Miacus, however you pronounce it. I don't know.
It was a bit of a waste bin taxon, huh?
Yeah, a bunch of things that were sort of weaselly, all living kind of around the same time, and with with more fossils, better scanning, microscopes and all that sort of stuff. Turns out, no, not all of these are the same species or even the same genus. So, but so the carnivore morpha is carnivorans plus their stem relatives. Carnivora includes two modern clades, two extant clades, which is Caeniformes, the dog-like carnivorans, which is dogs, weasels, seals, bears, and then Feliformes. Yeah, the weasel-like guys. And then if you're a coward, also the red panda.
Yeah, Iluridae only exists if you're a coward, guys. Heads up. If you don't know that reference, you can head over to my channel and watch the second of my Kurt Wise videos, in which he says, "Oh, some scientists are wimps or cowards, and they put Iluridae." He said they put the red panda in its own family, but who cares? It's just like, my goodness. The thing that bugs me about Kurt Wise is PhD paleontologist, man. Like, he knows better than this.
Oh,
he definitely knows better.
Yeah.
He knows why Iluridae is a family. He should at least know why Antilocapridae is a family.
Yeah. So, then the Feliformes, which Feliformes get a lot less love. I mean, obviously everyone's familiar with like Felidae, which are the cats, and also I cannot remember. Well, I was thinking the hyenas. I can't remember their family name though.
Yeah, but hyenas.
Hyenas,
civets.
There's like civets. Then you got like binturongs and fusa and
Man, you say binturong and fusa, and my heart skips a little beat because they're so great, and no one knows about them.
Pretty great, right? Yeah,
Also,
give more love to those guys.
Fun fact: binturong anal glands secrete a substance that smells kind of like buttered toast.
That is a fun fact. I feel more fun having learned that fact now.
Oh, beaver anal glands.
Meerkats are also in that group.
Oh yeah, beaver anal glands smell vaguely of vanilla, and in fact, it was used as vanilla substitute in the early 20th century in North America. It wasn't super popular.
For reasons.
In fact, artificial vanilla flavor is the first artificial flavor ever developed, and it was developed specifically because neither beaver anal glands nor actual bean vanilla were economically viable.
When the solution is just as bad as the cure. Yeah,
right.
Or sorry, the problem is just as bad as the problem.
A long-standing myth about beavers is that they will bite off their own testicles in order to escape from hunters. This is not true.
First of all, I had never heard that. So.
Yeah. That was a myth that persisted all the way into like the late medieval period, and it started way back in at least Roman times, where we have like depictions of beavers in Roman art biting at their own scrotums. And the reason for this is that the reason that beavers were hunted primarily at the time was in order to get secretions from their scrotum that were then used in perfumes, and are still used in perfumes, actually.
Gotta love it.
Yay! People putting weird stuff on their body to smell better. I mean, is it much better than whale vomit, which is another thing that's still in perfume?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Or like a donkey urine, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I don't get it.
You know how the Hyrax was named?
How is it named?
It was named after an ancient Roman medicine that they got from North Africa by scraping this crystally substance off of rocks. Yeah, it was dried Hyrax urine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Humans are doing all sorts of weird stuff with weird bits of animals. It's gross.
Yeah. Yeah. We also do weird stuff in some places with like rhino horns and things, which are just bonkers nonsense. So please don't kill rhinos and elephants to make medicine. Please don't do it.
Your ground up keratin from a rhino is not going to make anything more erect than it used to be.
Nope, you've taken something that was erect and turned it into powder.
Yes, it's just keratin. You would be just as well served grinding up your own hair and fingernails.
Yep. So yeah, don't kill rhinos. Don't do that. Or
do it,
elephants,
yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Then yeah, and there are like other Phylloformes, but again, you know, like nobody really cares about the civet like Phylloforms, except for, you know, things like the meerkat, because they're adorable. Everybody loves meerkats.
Yeah. Especially after the Lion King came out in, what was it, like 93?
Yeah, something like that. But these guys are stem. They're, you know, stem to both Caniformes and Phylloformes. So they nest outside the crown group. You got Dormaliscion, Dephonus, and then Meiosis. And they all look
Which
kind of
is only kind of real.
kind of real, yeah. And all these guys look sort of weaselly, which
Yeah.
early like dogs and cats also look sort of weaselly, or sort of civetly.
Yeah, civets and weasels, and to some extent, procyonids are sort of like the basal most in terms of morphology of the extant carnivorans. They all look very similar. They all have kind of similar lifestyles. You might not think that with procyonids if you're only familiar with the North American raccoon, but if you look at procyonids, which have
Like
a much
the
wider
Oligocene.
diversity, yeah. If you look at the South American or the Coatamundi, which does occur in North America, but really only in Mexico and the far southwestern United States. Like you get it in New Mexico, Arizona, tiny parts of California and Texas. But if you're familiar with those animals, or the kinkajou, which is adorable, and famously James Randi had a pet kinkajou. But
James
yeah,
Randi had
he did. He had a pet kinkajou. They're adorable, and they look like little weasel monkeys. And yeah, if you look at those, you'll see that they look a whole lot like, especially like a Dormaliscion, which is a weird word that I can't say.
Yeah, it is a weird word.
Our boy on the bottom right.
Dead boy.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Primates.
Yay. Yes, that is definitely how it is pronounced.
We got lots of primates in here.
Also, primates is the term for a group of Christian clergy.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's
interesting.
because in both cases, it derived from the word for first. Primates are the first among mammals because, well, they're the most human-like. That's all it is. And then the primates in Christian clergy are the highest-ranking bishops in any given church.
Nice.
Because they're the first among those bishops.
They're the prime primate, is what you're saying.
Yes, they're double primates.
Plesiodapus is another really early primate. It's from the Paleocene, super early dude.
Is that North American? I feel like it is.
Yes, it is North American.
Okay.
Yep.
Because like many animals that no longer exist in North America natively, primates have first of all in North America.
Yeah, and then they subsequently went extinct over there, and they North America and Europe. Yep, and then they only are in. Well, then they moved to Eurasia, and then into Africa, and then some of them crossed over into South America, and now we got this one monkey that's just everywhere, just all over the place.
Yeah, there is a particularly high population monkey that has managed to spread to virtually every landmass, including Antarctica. Because normally you say, it exists everywhere except Antarctica. Nope.
It's there too.
There are monkeys in Antarctica.
Occasionally, they're like at the bottom of the ocean too.
Very occasionally, they're not
intentionally
resident there.
and unintentionally.
Yes, they're transiently present at the bottom of the ocean. They're not resident there yet.
Not yet. Yeah, we until Cthulhu attacks our deep sea bases.
That actually reminds me, all the people who are like, "Oh, let's colonize Mars." It's like, look, man, it would be much easier to colonize the deep ocean. We haven't done that yet, so
it definitely would be. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, at least there's sufficient water down there.
Yeah, no, it does absolutely not involve like terraforming another planet to in the deep ocean.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of steps that we need to go through before I think we're ready to colonize Mars.
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
Goodness. Like if you think the bottom of the Mariana Trench is hostile to human life, well, go to Mars.
I got news.
It's way worse. Yeah.
We got news for you, buddy.
Yeah, and then there's Techno Jesus, who's like, no, it'll be fine. I'm gonna do it in 2020. Okay.
Would some people just say he's a scammer?
Oh, absolutely. Some people would say that.
I feel like that's the thing people would say. If
I'm not necessarily saying that, but some people would.
I am. I'd say he's just a scammer. Darwinius. You know what? We didn't get any Techno Jesus haters in the last video, so here we are again. We're gonna keep doing it till we get like overwhelming hate responses. Darwinius was
How
a
dare you
stem.
insult Tesla Daddy?
Darwinius is a stem strepsirrhine, also featured in Futurama in a conversation between Dr. Farnsworth and Dr. Banjo. So,
Yep. Not entirely appropriately, but
right. Well, there was some terrible press coverage of Darwinius when it was first discovered, like just absolute hot garbage press coverage. The idea that any fossil is our direct ancestor is questionable at absolute best.
There's a few members of Homo where that's fairly reasonable, but outside of that, no.
Yeah, no, yeah, within our own genus. This is like 50 million years ago.
Yeah.
Is
it impossible that it's the direct ancestor of humans? No. Is it extremely unlikely? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That fossil right there might actually be your ancestor. It's almost certainly not, though.
Yeah, no, especially since the morphological analyses have consistently put it closer to lemurs than to our own lineage, the haplorhines. So, yeah, no, almost certainly not our direct ancestor, and shame on the people who ran those stories. Just shame on
science reporting kind of sucks, guys.
Yep.
Like that time Fox News just made up the idea that dinosaurs farted themselves into extinction, and then various even stupider people ran with it. Yep.
Cough, Matt Powell, cough. Anyway, Eocene is a stem tarsier from the Eocene. Cute little guy.
That's one of those groups of primates that are still around. Yeah. Tarsiers are one of those groups
they are. They have
primates that are around. No one knows
gigantic
about
eyes.
Them. They do.
They're like in Southeast Asia, I think. Occasionally features food for orangutans.
I know someone who was bit by a tarsier once.
Unfortunate.
It didn't break the skin. But
wild animals.
It didn't break the skin, but it did surprise her greatly.
Yeah, I mean, broadly speaking, try not to get bit by wild animals. Just that's a general rule.
Well, this one was being kept as a pet for photo opportunities in Asia, and my friend was extremely nervous, and it picked up on that. They'll notice that you're not comfortable holding them, and then they'll get nervous, and then if they get nervous enough, they'll give you a little nip.
Yep,
that's what happened. She was fine.
That's good. Glad to hear.
She also did not pay for that photograph.
Did not pay because she got bit.
Right? She was like, "I'm not paying. I got bit."
Fair enough. Use whatever advantage you can. Absolutely.
To be fair, I don't think she kept the photograph either.
Then there's Branicella, so early, like stem platyrrhine, little monkey, tiny monkey. All the primates were very small at this time in like the early Cenozoic.
I mean, that's true for mammals broadly. Like all of and then you name a modern group that existed at the time were usually much, much, much smaller than they are today.
Yes, yeah. Elephants were like the size of pigs, I think. In the Eocene, they were not. They were not the huge guys that we know.
Proboscideans.
Oh, sorry, proboscideans. They were not the huge, towering animals that we know today. They were not there yet.
Interestingly enough, modern proboscideans are smaller than the largest proboscideans ever. Significantly so in some cases.
Well, I mean, that's also true for. I think it's probably true for a lot of animals, like rhinos. Paraceratherium. Anyway.
Possibly the biggest mammal, terrestrial mammal ever to live.
Right. Yeah. Blue
whales haven't beat by a mile, but whatever.
That is true. Yeah, being aquatic places a lot of different pressures on you. So
we'll say blue whales are often called the largest animals ever known to exist, but there have been some extremely large ichthyosaurs that currently there are some estimates that give them a run for their money. So it is possible they might actually be toppled in the future by an ichthyosaur.
What ichthyosaur is that big?
One of the problems is that a number of the largest ichthyosaur remains are currently not described, so they don't technically have a name.
Dang, that's
Yeah.
whack, yo.
But they're working on it. But the thing is, like, we're finding like ichthyosaur teeth correlate pretty well with like body size, and they're very small compared to their body size. And we've been finding like, oh, hey, look, this is like a 4-inch long ichthyosaur tooth. That would have to go to a very big animal if those proportions hold.
Right, yeah. Good gravy. Anything you want to add on this slide?
No, I think I'm good on primates.
Okay.
You guys are weird.
They are weird. Bunch of monkeys. Well, yeah, I guess we can do this slide. Oligocene, 34 to 23 million years ago. Global cooling is becoming a thing in this time period. As you can see, like much of North America is exposed because you're getting like, ice caps forming, and lots of water getting locked up as ice. So you've got a lot of land exposed. So yeah.
A trend which will only continue for quite a while.
Yep. But you still got like the remnants of the Tethys Sea in Eurasia. Hasn't quite closed up totally yet. But it's getting there. Just give them some time. India has definitely contacted with Asia at this point. At this point, also South America and North America are not contacted. They're still separated.
No, they're very close, but yeah, they're still separated, which does mean that at this point we are still getting the full range of native South American animals in general. Spoiler alerts: when the land bridge forms, it goes pretty poorly on the whole for South American biodiversity, and it barely makes it affect at all in North American biodiversity. I'm trying to think. So porcupines, raccoons, and armadillos are basically the only animals that have been. And opossums are basically the only animals that have had a very successful go of it infiltrating North America from South America and basically getting past like the deserts of southern North America.
Yep, did not go well for them guys. It was much easier in terms of like climate for the North American mammals going south than the South American mammals going north.
Sorry, guys.
There were though some archipelagos that were between North and South America, which maybe like invertebrates were passing between them, or maybe even very small vertebrates. So for a certain project that I'm working on, it seems that there was like dispersal of some dung beetles from South America to North America before the continents contacted. So yeah, so they were probably island hopping before they actually met up.
On rafts of dung?
Possibly. Who knows? I don't know. Does dung? Do balls of dung float? I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, have you ever had a floater in your toilet? The answer is sometimes.
Maybe. Anyways,
depends on how fatty that diet is.
That's true. I mean, they also could have just gotten like blown on the winds or something.
Yeah, there's a whole lot more options that are much more likely than dung beetles actually dispersing on actual dung over the ocean.
Who knows?
The most likely.
They're like a fleet of little dung balls sailing the 7 seas.
Get Admiral Dung Beetle.
Yep, they lash all of their dung balls together into a single raft. Anyway, all right. Next slide, please. Oligocene fauna. So, sundry Oligocene fauna. Oligopithecus was a larger primate. He seems to be like closer to the Sarcopithecus and the apes. So that collective group is called the catarrhines. You have the platyrrhines, which is a South American. Interestingly, we are like more. We're more distantly related to the platyrrhines than we are to the Afro-Eurasian monkeys. Interesting little tidbit. So, like, it was a very early group of primates who made the jump to South America. Oh, look, I did it correctly. Paraceratherium. I did it, Dapper. Yay me.
Oh, you did. That's awesome.
Go, Jackson.
Although, rhino should be in quotations.
Fair enough. Perissodactyl.
As should camel, really.
And elephant.
Yeah, actually, the only thing you technically got completely correct is primate.
Pobratherium was So camels have very interesting dispersion because like you can track them from North America to Eurasia, then down into Africa. Really cool stuff.
And lately into Australia.
Yes. Oh, also South America is the camelids. You can also find in South America is like the vicuña and the llama, alpaca, all those guys.
The guanaco. Don't forget the guanaco.
I would never forget the guanaco.
It sounded like you were going to, but I believe you.
I was like, I hope Dapper fills in the audience on the guanaco. That was my thought process.
Oh, okay.
It's like if I get everybody else, he'll take the last one.
It's true.
I'm trying to include you, in this.
To be honest, I sometimes forget the vicuña.
Yeah.
I can't say vicuña.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't speak Spanish. Anyway, Fiomia. What an elephant we've got. Yeah,
it's not an elephant though.
It is a proboscidean, not an elephantid, who had this weird shovel tusk thing going on. Early elephants, early proboscideans, experimented in a lot of different ways with their tusks, which is why
JG said in the chat, Hovind said that giraffes and rhinos couldn't bring forth, and yet here we are with Artiodactyl.
Fair enough. Yep. Is that Ida? Oh yes. Sorry, JG. Yes, that was Ida's type fossil or specimen. Which I guess the specimen is the type fossil, I believe. So there you go. Or the
specimens don't have type fossils.
The species that is the type fossil for the taxon. Yes, is Ida.
Yeah. That specimen is the type.
Yes.
Specimen. Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. I would be very. I don't know if there are any elephant genomes at present. I don't know if any extant elephants have their genome sequenced. I don't know. I don't actually know if there are any full.
I don't know if there are full
sequenced mammoth genomes.
I don't know about full sequences, but I know that we've sequenced enough of
genes.
Modern elephantids that we know that there are two species of Loxodon extant.
Yes.
There's only one of Elephas, and also that Mammuthus is closer to Elephas than Loxodon.
Yeah, and I have a slide later where we talk about elephantid phylogeny, but I was just trying to remember because I don't know if like the genes that are involved in like tusk formation, because the tusks are incisors. I don't know if they've worked all that out yet, because I'd be very curious to see like genetic explanations of how you get weird shovel tuskers like that. Because with the proboscideans, you got the modern elephants. It's all the upper incisors that are like super elongate that form the tusks. Whereas in the past you had upper and lower incisors. Sometimes they were like shovels. Some had only the bottom incisors that were tusks, which were a weird group called the Dinotherians. So that was neat.
Get some four tusks going.
Yeah, some had four big tusks, like Stegotetrabelodon, so weird guy. So yeah, elephants did a lot with their tusks. They had like a Nancus who had these ridiculously long tusks. Just ludicrously long. Absolutely ludicrously long. Anything you want to add?
No, I think we're good. Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Work in Progress, Bent Hovind, Tapioca Weasel, Denny5252, Ian Chen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, McSpooks, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, and Atheist Animal. As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance. Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if the annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me.
And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.
You found the skull.